Hey, it's Mo. I am so glad you're here today. We have not what I would call a lighting situation. It's fine. You're gonna be able to see everything accurately. You know, I only work with natural light, but the light is coming much more strongly from this side of the house. So there's a large window that kind of my hair is covering. It's back here, see? And I don't want that to come streaming at you. So I'm gonna leave my hair down and try to block that light while I film. Why do I use natural light? It is because I'm attempting to keep things as accurate as I can for you when it comes to swatches and what things really look like on my skin and all that stuff. So we work with the lighting that we've got. Adapting is part of life, right? Today we are talking about a new foundation from Colourpop. It is the Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Hydrating Foundation. The Pretty Fresh line is not new. You might remember from last year they released a tinted moisturizer in the Pretty Fresh line. They also came out with a primer, a setting spray, and a little bit later they came out with a concealer, and now they have added, as I said, a hydrating, or so they say, foundation to the line. This is different for me than any release I've ever seen that I know of anyway, because they did kind of a pre-release, we'll say, on Ulta this past week, and they released 29 of the shades, and then the actual release will happen on July 9th, this Thursday, on the Colourpop site with all 42 shades. So I didn't have all the shades to choose from, obviously, and it's already difficult enough to choose a foundation shade online. It's, you know, I mean, you're totally guessing based on their pictures, based on your monitor, based on the website, you know how all of that works. So I did purchase 3 shades, first of all, to try to get my correct shade, but maybe more so just to compare a few shades for you. Maybe that will help you get an idea. I'm on that kind of fair to light border, so if you're somewhere in my skin tone range, this might help you. And the shade that I thought that I would be, I am not. So again, that might help, but also reminder that not all of the shades are on the Ulta site, so I wasn't choosing from the full range of shades. I have a neutral undertone, so those are the shades that I've chosen. 3 of the lighter shades with a neutral undertone, and I'll compare those for you. I've chosen my own, and this is not a first impression. I've worn this 3 or 4 days, so I know what I think about it, and I'm gonna apply it for you, kind of tell you what I've figured out about application and wear time and all of that stuff. So details, like I said, Pretty Fresh. It's part of the Pretty Fresh line. Hyaluronic, they say it's a hydrating foundation. And it is $16. Currently available on Ulta. As I said, July 9th, it will be available for the same price on the Colourpop site. Buying mine from Ulta was a bit of a bonus because I had that $3.50 coupon, which does work for Colourpop products. So a little less money if that's the way you go about it. But let's talk about it. So you can see it is in a pump, which most people appreciate. It's got a lid. It's a nice heavy-ish weight bottle. It is plastic, but it's nice. It's frosted. It feels nice. The only real packaging, I don't even want to say complaint, but the only packaging thing I'd even point out is that it's one of those that has, like, this gets pretty messy looking, like, because it kind of drips down, maybe because it's white in color and probably because of the way this plastic kind of, goes over it. This gets messy and the pump gets messy. I wipe these off actually before filming. It's a super minor thing, but I just wanted to mention that. So I chose 3 shades, as I mentioned, in the Fair to Light category. I got Fair 20N, which is this one. I got Fair 30N, this one. And then Light 55N. From what I've seen of swatches that other people have done, there is another neutral shade in there that was not posted to the Ulta site. I believe it's 40N. So that one I don't have to swatch. I wish I did. These are the 3 that I chose from: 20N, 30N, 55N. Online, I thought 30N would be my shade. And actually 55N is closer for me. None of them are a perfect spot-on match, but this one is really pretty good. When I get it on, you'll see. And I have also used 30N. It's a little light for me, but it did Like when I put bronzer and things on, it worked out okay. And I'm gonna apply this for you. And because I happen to have the Pretty Fresh primer, I'm going to use that. They recommend it. I rarely use a recommended primer with a foundation. I just use whatever primer I like. I don't mind this primer. I don't think it does miraculous things, but it's pleasant. It smells good. It's probably a little bit moisturizing, I would say. Looks like that. Here, I should show you the. It's packaged identically to the foundation. The only things I have on so far are, you know, skincare and sunscreen. And then I'll put this on. This does smell good. Kind of the basis of this whole line is coconut water. At least that's what they tout about it. I'm gonna pull my hair back and we'll see if that light behind me is too distracting. I think I can still block it. I think I can block that big window with my head. I have a tiny head, so I'm amazed. Any 55N, this is 55N, I have shaken it up. And I'm kind of guessing on how much I want there. So there is the consistency. Kind of in the middle. It's certainly not thick. It's definitely liquidy, as people say, but it's not just running right down my hand. You know, there's a little bit of something there. So I am usually a finger applier person. I can do whatever. I usually, my go-to is fingers, and then usually a brush, and then I've kind of started to embrace a beauty sponge. It took me a while to think that wasn't too big a hassle. So I'm gonna do one side with my fingers actually, just to see the difference. On the other side, I'm gonna do a beauty sponge. We'll just kind of do a half and half here, because I want you to see the coverage of this foundation. Just in the way that I would put it on. Okay, so that's obviously as half and half as I could make it. Half of my face done with fingers with the new Pretty Fresh foundation. And then this side of my face obviously doesn't have anything. So you can certainly see the redness is covered up here. Same thing on my chin. You can still see some of my hyperpigmentation, but it's significantly less than on this side. And that was one layer, we'll say, with fingers. I go for a pretty natural looking light to medium coverage. Typically that's what I prefer. I would say this is very close to what I like. It might even be just a little heavier than many things I wear, but maybe just slightly. I like the coverage of this. I think it's very pretty. And you can see the finish. You know, it's just a little bit luminous. And on the other side, I'm going to use a damp beauty sponge because these are the two ways that I've worn it most and that I like it, and we're gonna see if there's a difference. This is a Wet n Wild sponge, by the way. Might be a little more damp than I preferred. I really liked, when I use a beauty sponge, I like it to be pretty much squeezed, not dry, but just barely damp. So usually I'll put some water on it and then squeeze it in a towel to really get any excess water out, which is what I did today. Oops, don't want to go on that side. So that was super quick, just kind of popping that on. And there's that side. So finger application, sponge application. I don't see a significant difference. I think the coverage on this side is a little bit heavier. In using this, I found that I really do like the way it applies and looks and the finish and everything with a sponge, which has been kind of interesting since that's not usually my go-to. And it does say it's buildable. Which I have found to be accurate. I don't build foundation up typically very much at all. As I said, I like to keep it in the fairly natural category. And the most redness I usually have is like around my nose. So I'm going to give you a pretty good look at that. I just wiped it off, but I still had quite a bit left on my hand. That was a pretty good size. That wasn't even a full pump. It was maybe 3/4 of a pump that I used. So as I said, this is not a first impression. I've worn this several days. I haven't found any issues with it. I like the finish. As I said, it's maybe just a little luminous, pretty natural, but not flat in any way, but also not too dewy. I don't prefer a really dewy foundation. I think the coverage level is pretty much what I like. And if I wanted to sheer it out just a little, I certainly could. But I think it gives a really nice finish on the skin. And I've worn it for, 11, 12 hours a couple of times, and I felt really good about the staying power. I thought it stayed on really well. In fact, the one day that I did swatches on my arm, I was busy doing things and I forgot to take them off, and they stayed on pretty well. I don't like foundations that wear away easily, or that I can feel, or that, transfer when I touch them. This one really, really does a nice job, I think. And you can see the color match, just sometimes a little tough to see even on camera. But that 55N for me is a surprisingly good match. And like when I swatched it on my arm, it looked a little peachy or yellowy leaning, but it really, when I got it on, it does look fairly neutral to me anyway. So I really like this new foundation from Colourpop. I think it's very encouraging to see 42 shades. I think there's 6 categories, and then in each category there are 7 shades. So, light, medium, fair, deep, tan, they all have 7 shades. So in theory anyway, there's an equal number of shades for each skin tone depth. I think it's a good foundation. I think the shade range is pretty good. I really give this high marks, and I'm really glad that I tried it. Also, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to try more than one shade, because I did not think I'd be this shade. I thought because this number seemed higher than typical for me, it would probably be too dark, but in the end, it's really a good match. So if your skin tone is close to mine, maybe that's helpful to you. Or if it's a little lighter, maybe those other shades were helpful. But anyway, I hope that was helpful. That is always my only purpose here. I absolutely love makeup. I love to talk about it, and I love to help you figure out if you do or don't want to spend your money on something. Always, as I always say, based on your budget, whatever that may be. So I hope you are at peace today, and I'll talk to you soon.